जय गोपी जन वल्लभ, जय गिरिवर धारी, जय गिरिवर धारी। यशोदानंदन व्रज जन रंजन, यशोदानंदन व्रज जन रंजन, यशोदानंदन व्रज जन रंजन, यमुना तीर वनचारी, जय यमुना तीर वनचारी, जय राधा माधवा, जय कुंज बिहारी। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे, हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे नाम संकीर्तन। जगन्नाथ बलदेव रमाई की जय, लड्डू गोपाल की जय, नरसिंह भगवान की जय, पंचतत्व की जय, षड गोस्वामी की जय, गुरु परंपरा की जय, श्री शिव गोपाल की श्री ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयम् उदीरयेत्. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances unto the bastard of Godhead Narayana, unto Narayana Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. नष्टप्रायेषु भद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवती उत्तम श्लोके bhaktir nextiki. By regular attendance in classes of the Bhagavatam and by rendering of service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart, sometimes completely destroyed. A loving service unto the personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs, is established in the little book. So, Hare Krishna, Bhagavatam, so just share the screen. So, today we'll be discussing from fourth canto, fifth chapter. There are four words, 5, 6, 7, and 8, 5 verses. So, let us start with sitting. अज्ञप्त एवं कुपितेन मन्युना सदेव देवं परिचक्रमे विभुम् मेने तदात्मानम् असङ्गरं हसा महीयसां तात सह सहिष्णुम्. Synonyms, word to word meaning. Agyaptah, being ordered, evam, in this manner, kupitena, angry, manyuna, by Lord Shiva, who is anger personified. Saha, he, Veerabhadra, Deva Devam, he who is worshipped by the demigods. Parichakrame, circumambulated, Vibhum, Lord Shiva, Mene, considered, Tada, at that time, Atmanam, himself, Asangaramahasa, with the power of Lord Shiva and that cannot be opened, opposed. Mahiyasam, of the most powerful. Tata, my dear Vidura, Saha, strength, Sahishnum, capable of coping with. Translation by Srila Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada. Maitreya continued, my dear Vidura, that black person was the personified anger of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and he was prepared to execute the orders of Lord Shiva. Thus, considering himself capable of coping with any power offered against him, he circumambulated Lord Shiva. The sixth verse. Anviyamana Saturudra Parshade Vrisham Nadadbhir Vyanadat Subhairavam Udyamya Shulam जगदन्तकान्तकम् सम्प्राद्रवद्घोषणभूषणाङ्घ्रिः. Synonyms word to name. Anviyamanah, being followed. Saha, he, Virabhadra. Tu, but. Rudra Parshadaihi, by the soldiers of Lord Shiva. Brisham, tumultuously. Nadadbihi, roaring. Vyanadad, sounded. Subhairavam, very fearful. Udamya, carrying. Shulam, a trident. Jagadantaka, dead. Antakam, killing. Sampradavat, hurried towards the sacrifice of Daksha. Goshana, roaring. Bhushana, Angrihi, with bangles on his legs. Translation, Srila Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada. Many of the soldiers of Lord Shiva followed the fierce personality in a tumultuous roar. He carried a great trident, fearful enough to kill even death, and on his legs he wore bangles which seemed to roar. Go to seventh verse. Athar tujo yajaman sadasyaha kakobhyudichyam prasameksharenum tamakimetat kutaetat rajo bhut iti dvija patnyascha dadyu. What word meaning? So, no. Atha, at that time, Ritvijaha, the priests, Yajamanaha, the chief person performing the sacrifice, Daksha, Sadasyaha, all the persons assembled in the sacrificial arena, Kakubhi, Udichyam, in the northern direction, Prasamikshya, seeing, Renum, the dust storm, Tamaha, darkness, Kim, what, Etad, this, Kutaha, from where, Etad, this, Rajaha, dust, Abhut, has come, Iti, thus, Dujaha, Brahmanas, Dujapatnyaha, the wives of the Brahmanas, Cha, and Dadyuhu began to speculate. Translation, at that time, all the persons assembled in the sacrificial arena, the priests, the chief of the sacrificial performance, and the Brahmanas and their wives, wondered where the darkness was coming from. Later, they could understand that it was a dust storm, and all of them were full of anxiety. Eighth verse. Vata nahi santi dasyavah प्राचीन बर्हिर जीवति हो वृदंडः गावो न काल्यंत इदं कुतो रजो लोको अधुना किम प्रलयाय कल्पते. Synonyms. Vata, the winds, navanti are not blowing, no, not he's, because, santi or possible, dasyavaha, plunderers, Prachina Barihi, old King Barhi, Jivati is living her still, Ugra Dandaha, who would sternly punish, Gavaha, the cows, Na Kalyante are not being driven, Idam, this, Kutaha, from where, Raja, dust, Lokaha, the planet, Adhuna, now, Kim, is it, Pralayaya, for dissolution, Kalpate, to be considered ready. Translation purport is Divan Shilpapad Kichai. Please hear the translation purport. Conjuncturing on the origin of the storm, they said, there is no wind blowing and no cows are passing, nor is it possible that this storm could be raised by plunderers, for there is still the strong king, Barhi, who would punish them. So where is this dust storm blowing from? Is the dissolution of the planet now to occur? Purport. Specifically, significant is in this verse is Prachina Barhir Jivati. That is, the king of that part of the land was known as Barhi. And although he was old, he was still living. And he was a very strong ruler. Thus, there was no possibility of an invasion by thieves and plunderers. Indirectly, it is stated here that thieves, plunderers, and rogues, an unwanted population, can exist only in a state or kingdom where there is no strong ruler. When, in the name of justice, thieves are allowed liberty, the state and the kingdom are disturbed by such plunderers and unwanted population. The dust storm created by the soldiers and assistants of Lord Shiva resembled the situation at the time of the dissolution of this world. When there is a need for the dissolution of the middle creation, this function is conducted by Lord Shiva. Therefore, the situation now created by him resembled the dissolution of the cosmic manifestation. Jai Shri Prabhupada ki jai. Om Gyan Timrandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Vayam Rupakadamahyam Dadati Savadanikam Vandeyam Shri Guru Shri Yutabadakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagara Jatam Sagana Raghunatam Vitantam Sajivam Sadhvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan तवनिता श्री विशाखाकांश्च हे कृष्ण करुणा सिंधु दीनबंधु जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिकाकांत राधाकांत नमोस्तुते तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभयेव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौरभक्तवृंद हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे योऽन्तः प्रविश्य मम वाचि मां प्रसुप्तां सञ्जीवयते किल शक्तिधरस्वधाम्ना अन्यां च हस्तचरणश्रवणतगादीन् प्राणान् नमो भगवते पुरुषाय तुभ्यं त्वं करोति वाचालं पङ्गुं यत्किरिमित्कृपतो वन्दे प्रमाणं नमो विष्णु 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 महाशिवसंज्ञामि So Hare Krishna, Praise Mother, welcome all of you and thank you for joining and keeping the appointment of Krishna. So today, this chapter is entitled Frustration of the Sacrifice of Daksha. In the previous chapter was Sati quits her body. So it is continuing from that episode. So the four verses, fourth canto, fifth chapter, verse number 5, 6, 7, and 8. So in the fourth verse, just before this fifth one, Prabhupada says in the purport, there is sometimes a competition between the mode of goodness and the mode of ignorance. So that is the way of material existence. Even one is situated in the mode of goodness, there is every possibility that his position will be mixed with or attacked by the mode of passion or ignorance. So that is the law of material nature. So Prabhupada says in that fourth purport, this quarrel between Lord Shiva and Bhrigumuni centering around Prajapati Daksha is a practical example of such competition between the different qualitative modes of material nature. So let's have a glimpse, how this, why it's happening, why the anger. See in the purport of 14th chapter or 10th verse in Bhagavad Gita, Prabhupada says, when the mode of passion is prominent, the mode of goodness and ignorance are defeated. When the mode of goodness is prominent, passion and ignorance are defeated. And when the mode of ignorance is prominent, passion and goodness are defeated. So this competition is always going on. So one who is actually intent on advancing in Krishna consciousness, he has to transcend these three modes. See, the prominence of some certain mode of nature is manifested in one's dealings, in his activities, eating, whatever it is. But if one wants, he can develop by practice the mode of goodness and thus defeat the mode of ignorance and passion. Sorry. See, although there are these three modes of mental nature, if one is determined, he can be blessed by the mode of goodness. And by transcending the mode of goodness, he can be situated in pure goodness, Shuddha Sattva. Thereby, he can understand the science of God. See, the three verses, 4th canto, 26th chapter, verse number 1, 2, and 3. Rupa says these three verses explain how the material body of the living entity is under the control of the three qualities of the external energy. See, the body itself is a chariot, and the living entity is the owner of the body. As it is explained in 2.13 Bhagavad Gita, Dehino Asmin Yatha Dehe. See, the owner of the body is called Dehi, and he is situated within this body. So the living entity is driven by one chariot driver. And the chariot itself is made of three gunas, that is, three qualities of material nature. As it is given in Bhagavad Gita 18.61, Yantra Rudhani Mayaya. So the word Yantra means carriage. So the body is given by material nature. And the driver of that body is Paramatma, the super soul. And the living entity is seated within the chariot. So this is the actual position, actually. So the living entity is always being influenced by the three qualities. Sattva, goodness; Rajas, passion; and Tamas, ignorance. And this again, it is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 7.13. Tribir gunamayer bhavaihi. The living entity is bewildered by the three qualities of material nature. So, one who has the eyes, to see, he can understand how the body is being driven, influenced by the particular type of quality of material nature. See, in these three verses, the activity of the living entity is described to prove how the body becomes influenced by the quality of ignorance, even when a person wants to be religious. So Narada he wanted to prove to King Prachinibar here, Parishad, that the king was being influenced by the Tamoguna, the quality of ignorance, even though the king was supposed to be very religious. That's why Krishna says in 18.6, transcendental religious system is recommended by Krishna in 18.6. Sarvadharman parityajya mam ekam sharanam vraja aham tvam sarvapapebhyo mokshayashyami ma shuchah. Abandon all varieties of religion and just surrender unto me. I shall deliver you from all sinful reaction. Do not fear. Now, because King Prajinabarshya was engaged in performing various sacrifices. In fact, animals also were killed. So Narada pointed out such sacrifices are influenced by the mode of ignorance. See, in the path of perfection, chapter 3, we're learning how to see God. In that chapter, Prabhupada is very beautifully given wonderful example. See, the living entity is constitutionally spirit soul, part and parcel of the Supreme Lord Krishna. Now, as soon as the mind, is contaminated, the living entity, because of he has got a little independence, minute independence. He rebels because the mind is contaminated. So in this stage, the mind dictates, why should I serve Krishna? I am God. So one labors under a false impression, right? And his life is spoiled. So we try to conquer many things, right? Even empires. But if we fail to conquer the mind, we are failures even if we manage to conquer an empire. Even though emperors, we will have within us our greatest enemy, our own mind. That's why Bhagavad Gita 6.7 says, for one who has conquered the mind, the super soul is already reached, for he has attained tranquility. To such a man, happiness and distress, heat and cold, honor and dishonor are all the same. See, actually, every living entity is, is intended to abide by the dictation of the Supreme Personality of God. Okay. Who is seated in everyone's heart as the Paramatma. So when the mind is misled by the external illusory energy, one becomes entangled in material activities. So as soon as one's mind is controlled, then one is to be considered as having already reached the destination. So one has to abide by the superior dictation. So when the mind is fixed on the superior nature, he has no alternative but to follow the dictation of the Supreme. So mind must admit some superior dictation and follow it. So when the mind is controlled, one automatically follows the dictation of the Paramatma, the Super Soul. Now, because this transcendental position is at once achieved, by one who is in Krishna consciousness, the devotee of the Lord is unaffected by the dualities of material existence, blissness and happiness, cold and heat, right? So this state is called samadhi or absorption in the Supreme. Jnana Vijnana Triptatma Kutasto Vijitendriya Yukta Etyuchyate Yogi Samaloshtrasma Kanchanaha. That is 6.8 Bhagavad Gita says. A person is said to be established in self-realization and is called a yogi or mystic when he is fully satisfied by virtue of acquired knowledge and realization. Such a person is situated in transcendence and self-control. And he sees everything, whether it be pebbles, stones, or gold, as the same. Book knowledge without realization of the supreme truth is useless. And it is given in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu 1 to 234. Ata Shri Krishna Namadi na bhavet grahyam indriyehi sevonmukhe jihvado swayam eva suratyadaha. No one can understand the transcendental nature of the name, form, quality, and pastimes of Sri Krishna through his materially contaminated senses. Not possible. Only when one becomes spiritually saturated by transcendental service to the Lord are the transcendental name, form, quality, and pastimes of the Lord revealed to him. See, there are men in the mode of goodness, passion, ignorance, and to reclaim all these conditioned souls, there are 18 Puranas. 6 Puranas are meant for those in the mode of goodness, 6 for those in the mode of passion, 6 for those in the mode of ignorance. So the Padma Purana is written for those in the mode of goodness. So because there are many different types of men, there are many different types of Vedic rituals because of that. So because there are different types of men, There are 18 Puranas to guide them. So the Vedic literatures are meant to redeem all men, not just a few. So it is not that it is not like that those who are meat eaters or drunkards, no, they are rejected. It is not like that. See, a doctor accepts all patients and he prescribes different medicines according to the disease. So it is not that he gives the same medicine for all diseases or that he treats just one disease. No, he offers a specific type of medicine to whomever comes, right? And the patient receives gradual treatment. So the Sattvic Puranas, like the Padma Purana, are meant for those in the mode of goodness. For those who are immediately capable of worshipping the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So in the Brahma Samhita 5.1, it is stated, Ishvara Paramaha Krishna Satchidananda Vigraha. The Supreme Controller is Krishna, who was eternal, who has an eternal, blissful spiritual body. So this is the Vedic pronouncement. And we thus accept Shri Krishna as the Supreme Lord. So those who are in the modes of passion and ignorance, no, they attempt to imagine the form of God. And when they are confused, no, they say, oh, there is no personal God. God is impersonal or void. This is the result of frustration. Actually, God has his form. Why not? According to Vedanta Sutra, Janmadhyasya first verse in Bhagavatam, the Supreme Absolute Truth is He from whom everything emanates. So it is easy to see that we have different types of bodies, different types of forms. So we must consider where these forms are coming from. Where have these forms originated? So we have to use a little common sense, right? If God is not a person, how can his sons be persons? If your father is just a void, and if he's not a person, how can you be a person? If your father has no form, how can you have form? So this is not very difficult. It is just a common sense question. Unfortunately, because people are frustrated, they try to imagine some form, or they conclude that because this middle form is temporary and troublesome, God must be formless. Because all forms in this middle world must perish. So God must be formless. Brahma Samhita specifically states that this conception is a mistake. So Ishvara Parama Krishna, Sachidananda Vigraha. God has form, but for his form is Sachidananda Vigraha. Sat means eternal, Chit means knowledge, and Ananda means pleasure. So God has a form, but his form is eternal and is full of knowledge and pleasure. So we cannot compare his form to our form. Our form is neither eternal, full of pleasure, nor full of knowledge. Therefore, God's form is different. So as soon as we speak of the form, we think that the form must be like ours. And therefore, we conclude that the eternal, all-knowing, all-blissful God must be without form. This is not knowledge, but the result of imperfect speculation. See, according to the Padma Purana, Patashri Nam Krishna Namadi, Na Bhavet Grahyam Indrehi, we just saw. One cannot understand the form, name, quality, or paraphernalia of God with one's material senses. Because our senses are imperfect. We cannot speculate on Krishna, who is supremely perfect. That is not possible. Now, the question is, how is it possible to understand Krishna? Sevon Mukhehi Jihvadav. By training and purifying our senses, we may come to understand and see Krishna. See, presently we are attempting to understand Krishna with impure, imperfect senses. It is like someone with cataract, trying to see. Just because one has cataracts, it should not conclude that there is nothing to be seen. So similarly, we cannot presently conceive of God's form, but once our cataracts are removed, we can see. So according to Brahma Samhita 5.38, Premanjana Churita Bhakti Vilochanena Santas Sadeva Hridayeshu Vilokayanti. So the devotees whose eyes are anointed with the ointment of love of God can see God within their hearts 24 hours a day. So purification of the senses is what is required. Then we can understand the name, the form, the qualities, and pastimes of Krishna. Then we'll be able to see Krishna everywhere and in everything. So in the purport of 3.15.15, Prabhupada says, in this material world, there are three modes of material qualities: goodness, passion, and ignorance. But in the spiritual world, there is no trace of the modes of passion and ignorance. There is only the mode of goodness, which is uncontaminated by any tinge of ignorance or passion. Even in the material world, even if a person is completely in goodness, is sometimes subject to be polluted by the tinges of modes of ignorance and passion. But in the Vaikuntha world, the spiritual sky, Only the mode of goodness in its pure form exists. So the Lord and his devotees reside in the Vaikuntha planets. They are the same transcendental quality, Shuddha Sattva, the mode of pure goodness. So the Vaikuntha planets are very dear to the Vaishnavas. And for the progressive march of the Vaishnavas towards the kingdom of God, Krishna helps his devotees. So in the fifth verse, no, in the translation, Maitreya continued, My dear Vidura, that black person was personified anger for the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Personified anger. That's why in 4:17:28 purport, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is death personified to miscreants and the Supreme Beloved Lord to the devotees. See, in Bhagavad Gita 10.34, Krishna says, Mrityu sarva haraschaham. I am all devouring death. So faithless, unbelievers, right, who challenge the appearance of God will be delivered by Supreme Personality of God when he appears before them as death. Hiranyakashipu, for example, he challenged the authority of the Supreme Personality of God, Krishna. And the Lord met him in the form of Narasimhadeva and killed him. So similarly, the planet Earth saw Maharaj Prithu as death personified. And she also saw him in the mood of anger personified. And so therefore she began to tremble. See, one cannot challenge the authority of the Supreme Personality of Godhead in any circumstances. It is better to surrender unto Krishna and take his protection at all times. See, 3:15:31, it is stated that the younger, Prabhupada says, very nice point. He says, it is figuratively stated that younger brother of desire. Who is the younger brother of desire? The younger brother of desire suddenly appeared in person when the sages were forbidden to see their most beloved personality Godhead. The younger brother of desire is anger. If one's desire is not fulfilled, the younger brother anger follows. So we can mark that even great saintly persons like the Sanat Kumaras, they were also angry. But they were not angry for their personal interests. This is an important point to understand. They were angry, but they were not angry for their personal interests. They were angry because they were forbidden to enter the palace to see the personality of God Krishna. So the theory that the perfection stage, one should not have anger, is not supported in this verse. See, anger will continue even in the liberated stage. See, these four mendicant brothers, Kumaras, Sanat Kumaras, they were considered liberated persons. But still they were angry because they were restricted in their service to the Lord. They were restricted in their service to Krishna. So the difference between the anger of an ordinary person and that of a liberated person is that an ordinary person becomes angry because his sense desires are not being fulfilled. Whereas a liberated person like the Kumaras becomes angry when restricted in the discharge of duties for serving the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It's a difference, very powerful. See, in the 4.5.8, the purport, specifically significant in this verse is Prachina Barhir Jivati. The king of that part of the land was known as Bari. And although he was old, he was still living and he was a very strong ruler. So very important to have a very strong ruler, right? So what happens if you have a very strong ruler? Although he was old, he was very strong. Thereby, there is no possibility of an invasion by thieves and plunderers. Indirectly, it is stated here that thieves, plunderers, and rogues and unwanted population can exist only in a state or kingdom where there is no strong ruler. That's why in 4:14:3 purport, Rupa says, when the government is very weak, rogues and thieves flourish. When the government is very weak, rogues and thieves flourish. So similarly, when the government is very strong, all the thieves and rogues disappear or hide themselves. That's why in 4:14:17 purport says, very nice points for us to understand. The duty of a pious king is very nicely described in this verse. His first and foremost duty is to give protection to the citizens from thieves and rogues, as well as from ministers who are no better than thieves and rogues. See, formerly, ministers were appointed by the king and they were not elected. So, if the king was not very pious or strict, the ministers would become thieves and rogues and exploit the innocent citizens. So it is the king's duty to see that there is no increase of thieves and rogues, either in the government secretariat or in the departments of public affairs. So if a king cannot give protection to citizens from thieves and rogues, both in the government service and in public affairs, he has no right to exact taxes from them. He cannot take taxes. That means, in other words, the king or the government that taxes, no, they can levy taxes from the citizens only if the king or government is able to give protection to the citizens from thieves and rooks. They can give good social welfare, and then they can levy taxes. That's why in the 12th canto, Bhagavatam 12:140, there's a description of these thieves and rogues in government service. It is said, Prajaste Bhakshishanti Blecha Rajanya Rupinaha. These proud Blechas, that is, persons who are less than Shudras, representing themselves as kings, they will tyrannize the citizens. So the practicing, thereby they practice evil habits, behave foolishly, and they'll be like the king. So the idea is that in the democratic days of Kali Yuga, the general population will fall down to the standards of Shudras. Prabhupada makes a very powerful statement. The idea is that the democratic days of Kali Yuga, the general population will fall down to the standard of Shudras. Kalau Shudra Sambhavaha, practically the whole population of the world will be Shudra. A Shudra is whom? He is a fourth class man who is only fit to work for the three higher social castes. So being fourth class man, Shudras are not very intelligent. Now since the population is fallen in these democratic days, no, they can only elect a person in their category. But a government cannot run very well when it is run by Shudras. The second class of men, known as Kshatriyas, they are especially meant for governing a country under the direction of saintly persons, Brahmanas, who are supposed to be very intelligent. See, in the other ages, Satyuga, Treta Yuga, and Dwapar Yuga, the general population was not so degraded, and the head of government was never elected. The king was the supreme executive personality. And if he caught any ministers, okay, stealing like thieves and rogues, he would at once have him killed or dismissed from service. Because it was the duty of the king to kill the thieves and rogues. It was similarly his duty to immediately kill dishonest ministers in government service also. So by such strict vigilance, no, the king could run the government very well. And the citizens would be happy to have such a king. So unless the king is perfectly able to give protection to citizens from rogues and thieves, he has no right to levy taxes from the citizens for his own sense gratification. Very important point. However, if he gives all protection to citizens and levies taxes on them, he can live very happily and peacefully in this life. And at the end of the life, he will be elevated to the heavenly kingdom or even to the Vaikutas, where he will be happy in all respects. So it's very appropriate to compare a powerful king like Prithu to a lion. So in India, Kshatriya kings are still called Singh, which means lion. So unless rogues, thieves, and other demonic people in a state are afraid of the executive head, unless they are afraid of them, who rules like a strong hand, unless the strong hand of ruler is there, there cannot be peace or prosperity in the state. So thieves and rogues simply they're awaiting some political upset in order to take the opportunity to plunder and the people in general. So to keep thieves and rogues inactive in their profession, a strong government is always required. In one of the lectures, Gopal says there are some remarkable points in one of the words he was talking about, 1325. Dasyu Prayeshu Rajasu. Rajasu means government. Raja, king or government. So monarchy is now abolished practically all over the world. Now it is democratic government. So this is called democratic government. And they are going on. They will become rogues and thieves. Dasyu Prayeshu. See, all the rogues, thieves, plunderers, they will capture. Because it is by vote. Dasyu. On the point of revolver, they take away money. They will take vote on the point of revolver. Actually, it is happening. So if you don't do this, then you will be shot by force. See, the people do not know what is government general. They want to live peacefully. They want a secure place. The only business is how to collect tax and not these Shudras and these governments. They only want to collect tax, divide it among themselves, and enjoy. So this is the beginning of Kali Yuga. Only we have passed 5,000 years. But the duration of Kali Yuga is 432,000 years. So we only passed 5,000 years. Actually, human life is meant for a very wonderful purpose. God is Krishna, God realization. And because this is not possible in other species, like in animals, we get this chance as a human being by evolutionary process, right? We come to the human form of life, civilized form of life. So now we should know who is God, who is supreme controller, who is the supreme source of everything. Janmadhyasya atato Brahma jigyasa. So this is the life for inquiring about Brahman, supreme, the great. But we are neglectful. This is called Kali Yuga. We are so much degraded. Prabhupada says gradually we are becoming degraded. See, 420,000 years is balance in Kali Yuga. 5,000 past, right? So if you again come and go, Dehantara Praptihi, Tata Dehantara Praptihi, that is Bhagavad Gita 2.13 says, if you continue transmigration from one body to another, then you will have to meet that age. Maybe during this age only, the end of Kali Yuga might be back again. But before meeting that age, try to understand Krishna how. So this is our movement. In this life, in the very life, in this very life, after giving the body, you should not come back again. Tyaktva deham punarjanma neti, 4.9 Bhagavad Gita. So no more coming to this rascal world. Go back home, back to God. Monarchy is better than democracy because if the monarchy is very strong, the regulatory principles within the kingdom are upheld very nicely. See, even 100 years ago in the state of Kashmir in India, Prabhupada says in 4, 13, 19, and 20 purport, the king was so strong that if a thief were arrested in his kingdom and brought before him, the king would immediately chop off the hands of the thief. So as a result of this severe punishment, no, there are practically no theft cases within the kingdom. Even if someone left something on the street, no one would touch it. The rule was that the things could be taken away only by the proprietor and that no one else would touch them. So in this so-called democracy, where there is a theft case, the police come, take note of the case, but generally the thief is never caught, nor is there any punishment offered to him. So as a result of the incapable government, at the present moment, thieves, rogues, cheaters, they are very prominent all over the world. So it is stated in Bhagavad Gita, Narakaya Varna Shankaraha, 1.40 Bhagavad Gita. See, when we produce unwanted children, the whole world becomes just like hell. It is going to happen like that at the present moment. Prabhupada says in this lecture, sex life is not denied, but in a regulated form so that you can get nice population. You can live very happily. Not that you produce unwanted children when they turn out to be rogues, thieves, drunkards. So that is not allowed. You must produce these nice children. And for that purpose, sex life is allowed, regulated. See, especially in this age, Kali Yuga, at the present moment, if you can produce children to become Krishna conscious, that will be great service to Krishna. Because we want now Krishna conscious population. Otherwise, this world is going to hell. That's a fact. We are dwindling. All these are coming because of grab, because of envy, jealousy, the tendency to grab, grabbing tendency, right? See, we all have the grabbing tendency in us. We always want to snatch others' possessions, wealth, name, fame, and so on. That's all we saw in Daksha's case, envy, right? See, we are not satisfied with what is given to us. Even if you are given an opulent life, still this grabbing tendency does not leave us. So best example is Dhritarashtra. Dhrita means snatching or grabbing. Dhrita. Rashtra means kingdom or empire. So he cunningly snatched the kingdom from the Pandavas, though they were the rightful heirs. So this grabbing tendency makes us lazy. Grabbing tendency makes us lazy because we want to get something without working hard for it. So even after all his sons were killed and Yudhishthira Maharaj became the ruler, Dhritarashtra was so shamelessly staying at their palace, enjoying all the hospitalities provided by the Pandavas. So at least, my Guru Maharaj used to say, at least Dhritarashtra was attracted only to the kingdom. Dhritarashtra was attracted only to the kingdom. But we want to snatch anything and everything. So instead of this nasty tendency to grab material things, we should strongly snatch the Lord's lotus feet. That is the only way we can become perfect. So there is a very nice prayer by Lord Brahma in 2:634. He says, "Oh Narada, because I have caught hold of the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Hari, with great zeal, whatever I say has never proved to have been false, nor is the progress of my mind ever deterred, nor are my senses ever degraded by temporary attachment to matter." So Maharaj was very much, he referred to this verse, 2:634. If we forcefully catch hold of the Lord's lotus feet, then our speech becomes perfect. Our mind becomes completely peaceful and steady because Savai Manaha Krishna Padara Vindayoho. Our mind is always concentrating on the lotus feet of Lord Krishna, how to serve him, and so on. So then our senses also become completely perfect. Our mind and senses are not attracted to the temporary material objects because it has tasted supreme bliss of Krishna's lotus feet. So if we follow this way, our grabbing tendency towards the low material objects, name, fame, automatically they vanish without any extraneous endeavor. Krishna very nicely advises Arjuna in 2.59. The embodied soul may be restricted from sense enjoyment, though the taste for sense objects remains. But ceasing such engagements by experiencing higher taste is fixed in consciousness. So we should always follow in the footsteps of our great acharyas like Brahma, Narada, and all their followers who have shown us the perfect way to perform sincere, intense devotional service to Krishna. If you follow them, our success is definite. In verse 2.61 in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says to Arjuna, one who restrains his senses, keeping them under full control and fixes his consciousness upon me, is known as a man of steady intelligence. So in the whole of Bhagavad Gita, if you want to remember a single word, then it is Samyam. Sayam. Srila Prabhupada in his word to word equivalent has mentioned the meaning of Samyamya as keeping under control. See, we all know that Supreme Lord Krishna is the master of all creation. So our existence in this world is also because of his mercy. So he has given us this life and all the basic necessities like air, water, food, clothing, shelter. Now, in spite of knowing all this truth, our senses just go hither and thither, right? Just like a mad elephant spoils the paddy field. Our wandering senses not only drive us crazy, but also causes havoc in the lives of people around us. So how can we control our senses? Is it possible to control them? So to make us understand the practicality of this samyamya, Srila Prabhupada in his purport to this verse gives us the example of the life of Maharaj Ambrisha, who in spite of being ruler of the whole world, not only one country or something, not even one state, whole world he was a ruler. He was able to have perfect control of the senses even under testing situations. So when Durvasa Muni, out of envy, misused his mystic potency and created a demon to kill Maharaj Ambarish for having taken water before offering him food, Maharaj Ambarish neither got agitated nor sad. He was neither fearful nor did he cry to Krishna to protect him or provide him justice. He did not do that. He didn't complain. He was simply thinking of the lotus feet of Krishna in his heart and considers this incident also at Lord's mercy to return back to him faster. So this was because of his practice of engaging all his senses in the service of the Lord. So in Bhagavatam, verse 9, 4, 18, 19, 20, ninth canto, 4th chapter, verse number 18, 19, and 23 verses, very nicely elaborated. Maharaj Ambrisha always engaged his mind in meditating upon the lotus feet of Krishna. His words in describing the glories of the Lord. His hands in cleansing the Lord's temple. His ears in hearing the words spoken by Krishna or about Krishna. He engaged his eyes in seeing the deity of Krishna, Krishna's temples, and Krishna's places like Mathura and Vrindavan. He engaged his sense of touch in touching the bodies of the Lord's devotees. He engaged his sense of smell in smelling the fragrance of tulasi offered to the Lord. He engaged his tongue in tasting the Lord's prasada. He engaged his legs in walking to the holy places and temples of the Lord. His head in bowing down before the Lord. And all his desires in serving the Lord 24 hours a day. Each and every sense has been occupied. So Maharaj Ambarish never desired anything for his own, for anything for his own sense gratification, not at all. He engaged all his senses in devotional service, in various engagements related to Krishna. So this is the way to increase attachment for the Lord and be completely free from all material desires. So how we can control these senses in our day-to-day life? We'll say just one point. Savaimana Krishna Padara Vindyo, to constantly engage our mind in the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord. See, mind is a subtle sense, very powerful. And if not controlled, it will overpower us. And that will be the cause of our ultimate destruction. See, its tendency is to wander, no? And especially stray away towards those things which takes our conscience away from Krishna. So Ambarish Maharaj was a great devotee of the Lord. Now, we may point this out as an excuse, okay, to say that now because Ambarish Maharaj was a great devotee of the Lord, he was able to engage his mind on the lotus feet of Lord Krishna. Whereas we are limited. So it's not possible to engage our mind in Krishna. People may ask. If we think honestly, we may understand that after all, we are responsible for managing our own, only our little family, right? Whereas Ambarish Maharaj had to take the responsibility of managing the entire world. How much more anxiety he must have had. From where he got the time to remember the Lord? So the answer is that he was able to see the Lord everywhere and in everything. Hari Sarvatra Sarvata. Even though he was busy managing the day-to-day affairs of his kingdom, he was consciously doing it as a service to the Supreme Lord. And whatever the result may be, he saw Krishna in the result and dedicated it back to him. Now, since he saw Krishna in everyone and everything, even though he was engaged in the day-to-day affairs of the kingdom, he did his service of managing the kingdom immaculately, with full realization that the service, object of service, and the result of service are different forms of Supreme Lord himself. So in this way, he was able to fully control the mind. So one may still argue, how can I serve Krishna in everything all the time? This is next to impossible. So Bhagavatam gives us a practical way to control the mind and engage it in Krishna service through the transcendental instruction of Jadabrata Maharaj. 5:11-17 Bhagavad. He says, this uncontrolled mind is the greatest enemy of the living entity. If one neglects it or gives it a chance, it will grow more and more powerful and will become victorious. Although it is not factual, it is very strong. It covers the constitutional position of the soul. O king, please try to conquer this mind by the weapon of service to the lotus feet of spiritual master and of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, to do this with great care. So by serving the lotus feet of the spiritual master and Krishna, that means strictly following their instructions. We can control the mind and automatically engage it in remembering them all the time. So these are a few things which could take care. Yeah, okay. So that means what we could understand, these four verses. Basically, because the Lord Shiva came to know about Sati's death, and also so he created that personified anger, and then Virabhadra, right? And everybody was going to kill those people in the sacrificial arena. So this is just like the modes acting in three types of modes at different stages. And we were able to understand that. And moreover, they were talking about how come there is a storm and all. The king, how come there is rogues and thieves and everything is coming about? How is it possible? We have a very strong ruler is here. He's still available. So that means when there is a strong ruler, all these things cannot happen. There won't be any rogues, thieves, and all. No plunderers will be there. But it is not so nowadays. Kali Yuga is progressing, so we have to be very careful. So, as Prabhupada says in one of the classes, we have to now this Krishna conscious movement is very, very important. We need to have Krishna conscious people, population. That's why with regulation, if you can create population in Krishna consciousness, this whole will be so peaceful and blissful for all of us to stay and really have wonderful. It will be as good as Satyuga. That's what we are aiming for. So thank you very much, Luis Mataji. Can you stop here? Granthra Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Hare Krishna.
Thanks a lot.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Thank you. Thanks for wonderful nectarian morning class. Really, it was
Thank
so
you.
blissful. Hare
Thank
Krishna.
you.
Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna.
We are truly
Thanks.
blessed by hearing yours.
Hare Krishna. Gurudev ki jai. Shri Prabhupada ki jai. Ananta
Hare
Koti
Krishna,
Vaishnava.
Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you
Thank
very much.
you. Thank you very much. Okay. So thank you very much for patiently hearing and giving me this opportunity to glorify the Lord and purify myself. Hare Krishna. Granthra Srimad Bhagavatam. Just stop here. Hare Krishna. Thank you, Mataji.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.